you want us to stand?
Y'all are welcome to stand around the table if you like. We're ready to get started. How is everybody today?
Good.
Good. I'm glad to have everyone here. Hello.
No, you're fine, man.
I think you all know my name, but John Michael for the interwebs since I'm recording right now. I chose a couple things today because I thought they would be really useful skills to have, and I was just going to do the herb drying at first, but it's actually, relatively quick and easy, so I was like, let's do a second thing with that. So, there's some benefits to drying herbs. So, you can use herbs fresh out of the garden. You can get I think they call them tines with a fork and run against it, which gets little leaves off there. You can chop it up. The smaller pieces there are, the stronger the taste, so you'll have to keep that in mind when you prepare your food. Another way that you can extend the shelf life of your herbs is to air dry them, and coincidentally, it's also the first step in a number of other ways that you can use your herbs. So if you have dry herb, you can do anything from infuse in olive oil, you can do vinegar, you can do compound butter, you can freeze olive oil cubes of herbs in the freezer. The more you search, there's more ways to do. But this is step one of all of those things. So it's really simple. Essentially what you do is you just go get a sprig of the herb you want. You'll do more of a bunch, but I wanted y'all to be able to pick what you wanted to, so I'm just getting a small sample. So you can take some twine, probably like 1.5 foot would be enough. And what you'll do is you'll actually just imagine it's a little cluster. You'll tie it around the bone. If you'll have an advantage if you are in Scouts because you'll know fancy knots better than I do. So I'm just going to do something simple. So yeah, you just get your little piece of herb hanging. You can do another little loop here if you want to hang it wherever you want to. You could do it on a windowsill, you could do it on a chandelier, you could have it hanging in your car. If you had a shed like this for drying, you could hang it in the shed, on a pole. There's a number of ways you can do it. So it'll take about 2 weeks to air dry. What you'll want to do is have it hanging in a cool, dark place, dry ideally. There are different ways you can achieve that, but essentially you'll just leave it hanging for a bit. When it's still wet, it'll have the fleshy feeling, it'll be, flexible, and then once it's drier, it'll become crispier and curl up a little bit. And then once you do that, the less water that's in there, it decreases the chances of rotting, and that's what's increasing your shelf life. And then you can take that and do a number of things that I described with. So.
Did you wash it first or not?
Yes, you would wash it first. I didn't go through all that, but the best time to pick herbs is in the morning. So that's before the sun has been on it, right after the dew has dried from the morning. And you'll also want to wash them off. And the ideal cluster that you're looking for is if they flower, you want them to be little buds, but not yet opened up. They'll look like they're right about to open up, and that's when the flavor profile is at its peak. So
do you just tie one sprig per string, or can you put more than one sprig on a string?
You would use a small cluster.
Okay.
I just did that because we don't have too many herbs at the moment. I want to make sure y'all all can pick one here in a second and do so yourself. So it's just an example.
I use pants hangers for a bunch, or if it had the straight bar, you can put a couple in there and just hang them.
Yeah, that's useful. Where do you get yours? Clothes hanger?
Oh, just whatever I've got
lying
around.
Yeah, gardeners are all about upcycling and reusing
Yeah.
stuff, so found objects. All right, so that's the herb drying. And the next thing I wanted to explain today was flower pressing. You can also press leaves. I first learned this in my environmental science class in college. Dr. Moore had different specimens all on a bookshelf, and they were all lined up, and he's like, I got this 40 years ago, and it still looks like he just picked it, except flat. So, if you can get leaves, these are already flat, so that's not something that we have to be too concerned about. That's kind of what we're looking for. I tried to pick a flatter flower specimen that I could find. If you want, Some suggest you can also like cut the crown in half. Not so high that you cut the leaves off, hopefully, but just to be, that may not work.
Just to make it flatter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can cut off. I would probably use an X-Acto knife instead of that. Let me go grab another specimen real quick.
Yeah, my grandma would do that too. You'd flip through like her old Bibles and all the stuff would fall out.
Okay, so don't do that.
I tried that as a kid, and I don't know what I did wrong, but I just remember like I'm not gonna try that again because I opened a book and the book was just smeared with like flour. I dyed the book and it wasn't my book. I was like,
Yes, so use the parchment paper.
oh yeah.
I mean, you can just do it in the book, but also you don't want to accidentally get any inks or anything on your specimen. I mean, unless you're going for some kind of collage art or something, then I guess that would be your goal. But so you can just fold up a piece of parchment paper. It helps keep it dry. It may be acid-free too. I'm not 100% certain. That will help either way. So you can take your little specimen, your leaves that you have. Make sure that the specimen is dry. I did blot it already. And then also with your flower, you can do both in the same page, or you can do different pages or different books, whatever. You can either do the flower with the crown flat way like this, or you can also arrange it to where it's on its side and you see like the side view of it. So I'll just do it the easy way. Now this is kind of like the layman's way of doing it with a big book like this. They have fancier flower presses that look like two wooden boards with like metal screws on the corners that you wedge together, but I'm trying to make this as accessible to everyone as possible, so there's no need to do that. So I mean, essentially, you just make sure you have it arranged the way you want it. Remember, however you press it is how it's going to stay, so. I should have mentioned you'll want to wash your hands before all this. So I mean, essentially, you just close it in there between the pieces of parchment paper. And what I'll do is I'll have other books on my bookshelf at home, and I'll have some stacked on top and some stacked underneath. And you'll literally just leave that there for a few weeks, or as long as you want to, honestly. And when you come back after that time, you'll have some wonderfully preserved specimens that you can use. Just like this is the basis for a number of uses for herbs. You could do like flower art, you can make bookmarks. I mean, I'm not a visual creative person as much as I'm music, so I mean, I'll let your imaginations play. So, do you have any questions about either of the things?
So how long should you let it sit like that?
This, honestly, I would let it sit for a few months just to make sure it's perfectly preserved. I mean, I don't
okay.
think you would need it immediately.
Right.
But if you want to make gifts for someone's birthday, I would get started a few months ahead of time.
Okay.
And that way you can pick it whenever which species is in season, and then you can have different kinds. So.
Okay, nice.
For the hang herbs, does that work for like basil as well?
That's a good question you brought up, something I failed to mention. Okay, so basil has like a fleshier leaf, which has a higher water content. Those kinds of herbs are more difficult to air dry, and most herbalists will recommend just using those fresh, which you can grow those in your house in like a cracky jar in the window if you wanted to. This preservation method is best for the skinnier, flatter leaves that aren't so fleshy, and they dry better. So you're welcome.
If you really want to dry your basil, though, like for storing, you can just put it in the oven real low temp, and it'll almost dehydrate it. And
Yeah,
then just
I was just say you could use a dehydrator, or like some air fryers have that setting on them.
What is it, about like 200?
Yeah, like as low as
As
your
low
oven
as
will
it
go,
goes.
and then just let it sit in there for 4 hours. You know, basil,
They check
watch
on it
it because that's
periodically.
thin. But like we dehydrated peppers even last year that way, just in the oven.
Didn't you make the pepper wreath? Or was that...
Oh no, I didn't do the
Okay.
wreath, but we just dehydrated peppers until I was very confident there was no water in them at all, and then we just ground them up.
Okay.
And now we have like pepper spice.
Uh,
And so it's storing in the spice cabinet, and you can just sprinkle some in your chili or whatever, you know.
Would you be interested in doing a curing class in the future? Because I know y'all have done like garlic and stuff like that, and
I think that's a really good thing to talk
maybe the
about.
sweet potatoes.
But it's all about water content, just like what you're saying. You know, you have to like Because you could dehydrate peppers, which have a lot of water content, but you wouldn't be able to do that by hanging necessarily.
Right.
You know, unless they were real thin peppers, like cayennes or something.
Some people will dehydrate their herbs in the microwave between like 2 pieces of paper towels for like 15 seconds at a time. I think you'll end up evaporating a lot of the essential oils like that, but if that's all you have available to you, it'll work. So, anybody else before we practice?
Off the top of your head, exactly what herbs could be done that way?
You could pick some rosemary. I would recommend the thyme. Maybe the cilantro. Maybe.
I've actually done sage before in the hanging method too, and you just the whole trick is you just got to leave it there long enough to make sure there's no more water in there.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll mold when you put it in your jar. You know, so
That's why you want a dry room.
And when you put it in a jar,
Yeah.
do you take all the leaves off?
I do just
Okay.
for storage.
Yeah.
You know, even with the sage, like I rolled some of it just for storage, and then some of it I rolled a lot more so that it was just kind of like rubbed sage, almost like you buy at the store. You know, yeah.
Yeah, and you could use a mortar and
Yeah.
pestle if you have one. Grind it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we have a couple scissors here. There's some more in the shed. Y'all are welcome to pick up whatever specimen you like. If you have a book, you're welcome to press it. You could press one in mine. I could bring it back later. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
You want to